Okay. So assignment one, we've just finished. Of course, we've all chosen our brand. We've completed part one, which was our research. We've completed part two, which is our developing our identity. Um, and part three was taking that finalized design and bringing it into color and application to our word marks and creating two final signatures. And now today we're starting project part four of this project, the brand guidelines. So I just showed you a bunch of examples, which you have up on our announcements of brand books, just to kind of give you an idea of how complex they can be and how much information they have on them. We're going to do a modified version of them, pretty simple version of them, basically to kind of what we'll call like kind of a baby version on the basics of what we need, which is to have this be a guide that anyone who takes this logo could take it and use it successfully on whatever they're producing. It's an official corporate document that explains our brand's identity and presents brand standards to whoever might be working with it, other designers, other people within the company. It may be a designer, it may not be a designer. It has to work for everybody. Sometimes they include a company overview, like you saw in the Coca-Cola version I gave you. Um, and sometimes they're really purely just about communicating the guideline. You might ask yourself, why are brand guidelines important? Well, the primary reason for having it is consistency. When you don't have rules, every designer and every marketer will present their ideas whatever way they see fit. And that might not be the best fit for the design. So we're going to be writing for a brand design, thinking about the copy of this book. It's basically instructional, and it's for designers and non-designers to use the brand. So it needs to be pretty simple and clear. We don't want to use a lot of lingo. We want it to be very clear and understandable to anyone who might be reading it, so they understand how to use the logo. Every illustration needs to be complete and describe the full list of rules illustrated. So for showing like what not to do, we need to kind of say, okay, this is what not to do, and this is why we don't do it. Kind of give an explanation. A brand book can be called many things. It also referred to as a brand guide, a visual identity guide, a brand manual, a style guide, brand identity book, or brand toolkit. They all mean the same thing. It's an official document. So what we want to include is think about we're going to put in, and you have this because you've already put this together in your mural template. Who is the company, right? The brand history. Well, it's a brand new company, so there is no brand history for us, but you can kind of say this was when it came about, because sometimes it does have a history. The mission statement and vision statement, you've already developed that. The values, the target audience, you have the personas, you have your audience identified. And communicate the rationale for the brand's design. So that's what we just wrote this week, is what is our brand rationale? In other words, why did we do what we did? And what does that do for the brand? What does that make sense for the brand? So when we get into the visual guidelines, each example is going to include instructions of brand use and rules. So the first thing, of course, is the logo. We're always going to start with black and white. We want to show the basics. This is the logo, one color, black and white. We always want to show it positive on a white background and inverted on a black or dark background. We're going to do the same with our color versions. We're going to show positive applications on a white background and inverted applications on a black or dark background. We're going to show variations stacked horizontal, a minimum size for both print and digital, and a social media bug. And again, that's what's going to happen as a little version on Instagram or in LinkedIn or wherever they're going to be showing on social media. It needs to work in a small circle. We're going to look at the clear area or safe area, and we're going to include illustrated proportions, showing how we find X in the mark. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to show logo misuse examples. We're going to show 6 to 12 examples of what not to do with our logo. That can be everything from adding it to a pattern, using the wrong colors, stretching it, mixing it in different ways. There's many different ways we can think of. And I'm sure even if we'll think of every way, as I've found, there will still be people out there to find ways you didn't even think they could do it wrong and do it wrong. So signature is your mark, your word mark, and a tagline. So include rules for using taglines and colors, where and when to use it. Also, you'd want to include a safe area minimum size for whenever you use the full signature. Colors, how and where do we use these colors? So we want to make sure that we're using the color codes. There's not just one way we see color. Color is used in process, which is printing, CMYK. Joe's our guy. He can tell us all about printing. So if you, but it's a CMYK process, and it's what we do whenever we're going on a printing press. PMS is the Pantone matching system, and Pantone colors are spot colors that we use mostly in printing, but it's also in product development. Let's say you're making a product like a phone or something, plastics and things. Everything uses Pantone colors to choose. So that's a spot color. We don't use them as much anymore, but they are, and they've been taken out of the Adobe products. So I don't know. There's a whole thing there. RGB is and hex are digital. Okay, RGB is red, blue, green. It's what we see on our computer monitors. Hex is what we use for web and digital assets. So we chose hex codes. Those are the FF0012, those kind of numbers. We want to make sure that we show all three. And Illustrator has just come out with a way to do all our color countouts. I'm really excited to show you guys. This is a very new feature that just came out this semester. So there's a way we can put our color palettes into Illustrator and then pull out all of these color codes. And it's with a click of a button. So it's just saving so much time. I'm super excited about it. So we'll get into that. And we're going to also need to identify what our primary brand colors and then what are secondary brand colors. Who could tell me why would we have primary and secondary? What do I mean by that? Anyone have any thoughts?
So yeah, that's for the brand guidelines for part four, right?
Right. Why would we choose some colors that are primary? What does it mean to be a primary color versus a secondary color?
Yeah, primary color is like the color that's used more often, and the secondary color is all colors that accompany the primary color.
You're right. Primary colors are the ones you're going to use the most often. They're the ones that you're most often associating with the brand. A secondary color might actually not even be used for the logo. It might just be a background color. It might be a packaging color. It might be it's not a color we use in all applications. So thank you. That's great, Jacob. Typography, we've already identified that today in our presentations today. We identified how and where to use corporate fonts for titles. We identified the typeface. Now we need to identify where and we use them. So for example, what typefaces are we using for titles, headlines, and body text? We have primary fonts and secondary fonts here as well, and they can still be the same typeface family. So if you've chosen with a typeface family that has a lot of members, so for example, a large type family, like let's say Futura. Futura probably has, depending on the version of Futura you're using, you could have up to 25 or 30 different members of that family. So you might have the bolder typefaces for headlines and titles, and then the book or medium for primarily for body text, and then maybe the light for captions. So you're going to identify what versions of that typeface are used for what areas. And I shared with you guys at the beginning of this project an example of my typefaces and how I identified where they should be used, and how I had a designer that didn't listen to any of it, and how that can go so wrong. So it's important to have it there so that you can always point back to it and get things back on track, when things go off the rails. Applications, brand mark applied to letterhead, business cards, products, vans, uniforms, swag. We also want to include digital applications. What does it look like on the website? What does it look like on a phone? What does it look like? All of those things. So the applications are really important. It's really important to show examples. You saw a lot of that in all the examples I gave you. So we're going to do this as a booklet, and it's just going to be a PDF booklet. A minimum pages is 24-page brand book. We're going to be setting this up and doing it in InDesign. Everything on the list must be included in our brand book. we're going to be working on a landscape design of 11 by 8.5. It's going to be a digital PDF. That's going to be our final output. We're not printing these because we're going to put it on our website, and then everyone who needs it, we can share it and just email it to so they can see it and use it. Let me show you some examples of what does that look like. So here is Madi, and this is their research. And now I'm going to go into their brand book. So this is for Madi, and this is there's a table of contents. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see this clearer. Here you can see there's their table of contents. Here is their about, who we are, their history, their mission, their vision. Where we are. Here you can see their personas, right? There's their personas of their audience. There's their digital minimum sizes, and they're giving measurements, and they're giving instruction. Here is the print minimum sizes. Again, measurements and instruction. Here they're showing the logo variations in black and white. This is the logo application, which is negative or inversed, white on black. Here it is positive, black on white. Same with their colors. Purple is the background, white on purple, and purple on white. And here you can see, I already saw that one. Here you can see the safe area. So what we are going to do when we get to safe area is we're going to be looking at taking an element out of our logo. For example, for Modi, they took out the O and use that as a measurement. So no matter what scale this logo is, we're going to take the O and use that as a space that goes all the way around the logo, so nothing can get too close to the logo. So that's going to be the way we show our safe space. And oh goodness, what am I doing? Let's go over to the logo misuse. So here's some examples of the logo misuse, what not to do. Do not use a color that's not accepted in the brand guidelines. Do not squash or stretch the logo. Do not use a color that's darker than the word mark for the tagline. Do not recolor certain letter forms of the logo, not even if the colors are on the accepted color. So even though these colors might be on the accepted color, you can't make this logo a 2-color logo. It's only intended to be a 1-color logo. Here's some more do nots. Do not move the letter forms around. Don't rearrange. Don't obscure the logo. Don't make the tagline smaller. Do not make the tagline larger than its intended use. Here's the actual signature use, the tagline, and the elements. Here are the colors. So here you can see the colors have all been given a name: Madi blue, blue, yogurt pink, rose pink, dark blue, and off-white. And then here's their RGB, CMYK, and PMS colors. There we go. Here's the applications. I'm like, where are the applications? Here we go. So here's the typography. Primary typeface is Garamond Pro, and secondary typeface is Como. And talking about where you can use them. And then here's the digital application. Here's her little social media bug. And here is some examples of t-shirts and swag bags. I'm not going to go as detailed into each one, but their examples are all on this project sheet, so you can definitely go deeper into it. Here is the research, and here is notice how these are really designed elements, just like the ones I showed you. You want to be really designing these. It's an extension of your brand. So here's one for room. Again, there's always going to be a table of contents, and then who we are, our logo variations, safe space, what not to do, colors, type, applications. Here's another one. Madi, here is the research, and here is the brand book. So here's the use of color, single use of color, reproduction, logo misuse. And a lot of times logo misuse, people will put a line through them. I like to do that too, because then it really kind of highlights do not do this. The logo safe area, the final application. Here's the digital applications, stationery, packaging, uniforms, and swag. And these are all on your final these are all on your final, what am I trying to say? Project brief under the assignment one type word mark monogram. So everything's in there for you to look at and review again. All right, I'm going to stop the share and see if we have any questions.